The war room was crowded with aliens. Taewon stood near the back wall watching them argue. His uniform felt too tight under all those angry stares. He was the only human in the room, and everyone knew it. The hologram in the center showed a galaxy map. Red dots marked where the enemy had attacked. There were so many red dots, too many. The Kralthak swarm was coming and nothing could stop them. At least that's what everyone believed. High Commander Veltok slammed his clawed hand on the table. He was tall, covered in green scales with eyes like a snake. His species had fought wars for thousands of years. They knew battle. They knew victory. Or so they thought. "We have 3,000 warships," Veltok said, his voice deep and rough. "Every species has sent their best. The Varkesh bring 500 battlecruisers. The Telmar contribute 400 destroyers. Even the peaceful Yandari have sent 200 medical frigates." He paused and looked directly at Taewon. "And humanity?" "Humanity sends one ship," laughter filled the room. Not friendly laughter. The kind that cuts like a knife. Taewon felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face calm. He had expected this. Humanity had been part of the Galactic Coalition for only 50 years. They were the newcomers, the young species, the ones who still didn't understand how the galaxy worked. "One ship," repeated a blue-skinned female from the Telmar delegation. "Do humans not understand the threat we face? The swarm has consumed 17 worlds. Billions are dead, and you send one ship?" Taewon stepped forward. The laughter died down. He walked to the hologram and stood beside Veltok. The alien commander was almost twice his height, but Taewon didn't look small. He looked steady. "We send the ESS Resolute," Taewon said quietly. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it. "She's our answer to this threat." "Your answer?" Veltok laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Humans have been in space for barely a century. You know nothing of war on this scale. Perhaps you should leave this fight to those who understand it." "Perhaps," Taewon said. "But we're here anyway." The meeting ended badly. Several species questioned whether humanity should remain in the coalition at all. If they couldn't contribute to the defense, what good were they? Taewon listened to all of it without arguing. There was no point. Words wouldn't change their minds. Only action would. He left the war room and walked through the metal corridors of Nexus Station. The station was massive, built by a dozen species working together. It had taken 20 years to construct. Now it would be the last line of defense against the swarm. His communicator buzzed. It was Hee-Jin, his second in command. Her face appeared on the small screen and she looked worried. "How bad was it?" she asked. "About as bad as we expected," Taewon replied. "They think we're fools." "Maybe we are," Hee-Jin said. "One ship against 10,000. Those aren't good numbers, Captain." "Good thing we don't plan to fight all 10,000, Taewon said. He allowed himself a small smile. "Is the Resolute ready?" "Jiwoo says the quantum drive is running at full capacity. Bora has finished her analysis of the swarm's communication patterns. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Hee-Jin paused. "Are you sure about this plan?" If it doesn't work, we'll be dead before we know we failed," Taewon said. "But it will work. It has to." He ended the call and continued walking. Through a large window, he could see the coalition fleet. Thousands of ships, all different shapes and sizes. Some were elegant and curved, built by species that valued beauty even in war. Others were brutal and angular, pure weapons with engines attached. Together they looked unstoppable, but Taewon knew better. He had studied the reports. Every species that fought the swarm used the same tactics, overwhelming firepower. They believed that if you threw enough weapons at a problem, it would die. Sometimes that worked. Against the Kralthak it never worked. The swarm was different. They adapted. They learned. Hit them with plasma cannons and they developed plasma-resistant armor. Use graviton torpedoes and they changed their biology to ignore gravity weapons. The more you fought them, the stronger they became. Every battle taught them how to win the next one. That's why humanity was sending one ship. Not because they were weak. Not because they didn't have more. But because fighting the swarm with traditional methods was suicide, you needed something different. Something they couldn't adapt to. Something they wouldn't see coming. Taewon reached the docking bay where the Resolute waited. She wasn't the biggest ship in the fleet. She wasn't the most heavily armed. But she was special. Built in secret over 10 years, using technology no other species possessed. The Coalition didn't know what made her unique. They would learn soon enough. He boarded the ship and walked to the bridge. His crew was already at their stations. Hyjin sat at the tactical console running simulations. Jiwoo monitored the engineering displays, making tiny adjustments to the power distribution. Bora reviewed her data on the swarm's biology, her eyes tired but focused. They all looked up when he entered. These were his people. 53 humans who volunteered for a mission they might not survive. They could have stayed on Earth safe and far from the war. Instead, they chose to be here. "Captain on the bridge," Hyejin announced. Tae-Wan nodded. He sat in the captain's chair and looked at the main screen. It showed the same galaxy map from the war room. The same red dots. The same approaching doom. "Long-range sensors are picking up something," Bo-Ra said suddenly. Her voice was tight. "It's them. The swarm. They're 3 hours away." The bridge went silent. 3 hours. That's all the time they had left to prepare. All the arguing and politics didn't matter anymore. The enemy was coming and they would have to fight. "How many ships?" Tae-Wan asked. Bora checked her readings. Her face went pale. "More than we thought. At least 10,000 bioships. Maybe more. They're clustered so tightly it's hard to get an accurate count. 10,000 against 3,000. And the swarm's ships were bigger, tougher, and they never stopped adapting. The coalition was outnumbered and outmatched. They just didn't know it yet." Tae-Wan stood up. He pressed a button on his chair, opening a channel to the entire ship. "This is the captain," he said. "The enemy will be here in 3 hours. I won't lie to you. This will be the hardest thing any of us have ever done. Many won't understand what we're trying to accomplish. They'll think we're crazy. Maybe we are." He paused. "But I believe in this ship. I believe in this crew. And I believe that when this is over, the galaxy will finally understand what humanity can do." He closed the channel. Hyjin was smiling at him. "Good speech," she said. "Thanks. I practiced it for 3 days." They both laughed. It felt good to laugh even now. Maybe especially now. Outside the ship, alarms started blaring across Nexus Station. The coalition fleet was moving into battle formation. 3,000 ships preparing to face an enemy that had never been defeated. An enemy that learned from every fight. An enemy that was about to learn that sometimes one ship is all you need. Tae-Wan sat back down. He gripped the armrests of his chair. "All crew to battle stations," he ordered. "This is it." The Resolute hummed with power. Deep in her core, the quantum drive began to spin up. Energy flowed through systems that other species didn't even have names for. Humanity's secret weapon was waking up. The wait began. 3 hours until the swarm arrived. 3 hours until humanity proved itself. Or 3 hours until they died trying. They appeared like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. One moment there was empty space. The next moment the swarm was there. 10,000 bioships, each one massive and alive. They didn't look like normal ships. They looked like creatures with rough organic hulls that pulsed and moved. Some had tentacles. Some had what looked like eyes. All of them were hungry. On the bridge of his flagship, Veltak watched the enemy arrive. He had fought in 43 battles. He had never felt fear. But looking at the swarm, something cold touched his heart. These things weren't just ships. They were alive, thinking, adapting. They were death itself. "All ships prepare to engage," Veltak ordered. His voice was steady. A commander couldn't show fear. "Fire on my mark." The coalition fleet spread out in attack formation. 3,000 ships against 10,000. Bad odds, but they had no choice. Behind them was Nexus Station. Behind that was the rest of the galaxy. If they failed here, the swarm would keep spreading. World after world would fall. "Fire!" Veltak shouted. Space lit up like a sun was being born. Plasma cannons fired streams of superheated energy. Graviton torpedoes bent space itself into weapons. Antimatter missiles exploded with the force of small stars. The first wave of attacks hit the swarm head-on. Hundreds of bioships exploded. Their organic hulls couldn't handle the concentrated firepower. Pieces of them scattered into space. The coalition fleet cheered. Maybe this wouldn't be so hard after all. Maybe the swarm's reputation was bigger than the reality. They were wrong. The remaining bioships began to change. Their hulls rippled and reformed. Where the plasma had burned them, new armor grew. Thick, crystalline plates that reflected the energy. The graviton torpedoes hit next, but the swarm ships just absorbed the gravity waves. They were adapting. Right in front of everyone's eyes, they were learning. "Fire again," Veltak ordered. "Keep firing." The coalition unleashed another barrage. This time, the weapons barely scratched the enemy. The plasma bounced off. The torpedoes did nothing. Even the antimatter missiles, the most powerful weapons they had, only left small dents. Then the swarm attacked back. It wasn't like any weapon the Coalition knew. The bioship shot out tendrils of living matter that latched onto Coalition vessels. Where they touched, metal began to dissolve. Ships tried to pull away, but the tendrils held tight. Within minutes, a dozen Coalition cruisers were torn apart. Panic spread through the fleet. They were supposed to be the defenders of the galaxy. They had the best weapons, the best training, but nothing was working. The swarm was too fast, too adaptable. For every ship they destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. On the Resolute, Taewon watched it all happen. His ship hung back, away from the main battle. They hadn't fired a single shot. Hyjin kept looking at him, waiting for orders, but he just watched. "Captain," she said quietly, "we need to do something." "Not yet," Taewon replied. His eyes were fixed on the tactical display. "Bo-Ra, are you getting the data?" "Yes, Captain," Bo-Ra answered. Her hands moved quickly across her console. "The swarm is using quantum entanglement to share information. Every ship is connected to every other ship. When one learns something, they all learn it. That's how they adapt so fast." "Can you find the synchronization point?" Taewon asked. "I'm looking," Bo-Ra said. "There has to be a moment when they all connect. A moment when the network is vulnerable. But I need more data." Taewon's communicator buzzed. It was Veltak. The alien commander's face filled the screen and he looked furious. "Human," Veltak shouted. "Why aren't you fighting? We're dying out here and your ship just sits there. Are you a coward?" "We're gathering data," Taewon said calmly. "We can't help you if we don't understand the enemy." "Understand? There's nothing to understand. They're monsters and we need to kill them. Join the attack or I'll have you removed from the Coalition." "Do what you must," Taewon said. "But we're staying here," he cut the connection. Hyjin stared at him. "That was probably not smart," she said. "Probably not," Taewon agreed. "But we stick to the plan." The battle grew worse. The Coalition was in full retreat now, trying to protect Nexus Station. Ships exploded every few seconds. The space between the fleets was full of debris and bodies. The swarm kept advancing, unstoppable. Then Bo-Ra gasped. "I found it," she said. "The synchronization window. When the swarm adapts to a new weapon, all their ships connect at once. For exactly 3 seconds, they're completely synchronized. That's when they're vulnerable." 3 seconds, Taewon said. "That's not much time." "It's worse than that," Bo-Ra continued. "The window already happened. They adapted to the Coalition weapons in the first few minutes. It won't happen again unless something forces them to adapt to something completely new." Yejin understood first. Her eyes went wide. "The quantum drive," she said. "If we use it on them, they'll have to adapt. They've never seen that technology before." "Exactly," Taewon said. "But we only get one chance. If we miss the window, we're dead. And we'll have to get close. Very close." Ji-Woo's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, I need to warn you. Using the quantum drive as a weapon will burn out every system we have. We won't have shields. We won't have engines. We'll be floating dead in space. Can you do it?" Taewon asked. There was a long pause. Then Ji-Woo laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. "Yeah, Captain, I can do it. But you better make it count." Taewon stood up. He looked at each member of his bridge crew. These people trusted him. They believed in the plan. They were willing to die for it. "All hands," he announced over the ship-wide channel. "This is the captain. We're going in. Anyone who wants to leave, get to the escape pods now. No judgment, no shame. You have 60 seconds." Nobody moved. Not a single person left their station. Taewon felt a lump in his throat. He was proud of them. Proud to serve with them. "Hyjin," he said. "Take us in. Full speed." The Resolute's engines roared to life. The small ship suddenly accelerated, breaking away from the rear position. It shot forward directly toward the swarm. The Coalition fleet was too busy fighting to notice one ship breaking formation. But the swarm noticed. A dozen bioships turned toward the Resolute. They recognized a threat when they saw one, even if they didn't understand it yet. Tendrils shot out, trying to grab the human vessel. Hyjin's hands danced across her controls. The Resolute twisted and turned, dodging attacks that would have destroyed any other ship. She flew through gaps that seemed too small. She made turns that should have torn the ship apart. But the Resolute held together, and they kept moving forward. "Shields at 60%, someone called out. "Doesn't matter," Taewon said. "Keep going." They plunged deeper into the swarm. Bioships surrounded them on all sides. The view screen showed nothing but enemy vessels, so many they blocked out everything else. The Resolute was alone in the heart of the enemy fleet. "Bora," Taiwan said. "Where's the command organism?" "Dead ahead," Bora replied. 2,000 meters. It's bigger than the others. That's the one coordinating the network. Taiwan saw it. A massive bioship, 3 times the size of any other. It pulsed with strange light. That was the brain of the swarm. That was their target. "Jiwoo," Taiwan said into his communicator. "Prepare the quantum pulse. We're in position." "Ready when you are, Captain. But I gotta tell you, this is going to hurt." Taiwan took a deep breath. This was it. Everything they'd worked for came down to this moment. One ship, one chance. 3 seconds to save the galaxy. "Fire," he said. The quantum drive screamed. It wasn't designed to be used this way. Deep in the Resolute's engine room, Jiwoo watched as systems turned red one after another. Temperature gauges climbed past safe levels. Power consumption spiked beyond what the ship could handle, but she didn't shut it down. She pushed it harder. The ship began to glow. Blue light spread across the hull, energy bleeding out into space. The swarm's bioships pulled back slightly, confused by what they were seeing. They had never encountered anything like this before. On the bridge, Taiwan gripped his chair as the ship shook. It felt like the Resolute was tearing itself apart. Maybe it was. Screens flickered. Sparks shot from damaged consoles. But the quantum drive kept building power. 30 seconds to full charge, Jiwoo announced. Her voice was strained. "Hull temperature is critical. Structural integrity at 70% and falling. We just need 30 seconds, Taiwan said. "We can hold for 30 seconds. The swarm stopped being confused. They attacked all at once. Every bioship in range fired at the Resolute. Tendrils wrapped around the hull. Organic weapons that dissolved metal on contact. The shields held for 5 seconds. Then they failed. The first tendril hit the port side. Metal hissed and melted. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Hyojin tried to maneuver away, but there were too many enemies. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. "Hull breach on deck 3, someone shouted. "We're venting atmosphere. Seal the bulkheads," Taiwan ordered. "Everyone get to emergency stations." Another hit. Then another. The Resolute was being torn apart. Through the window, Taiwan could see the bioships closing in. They knew this human vessel was dangerous. They were going to make sure it didn't survive. 20 seconds, Jiwoo called out. She was still in the engine room, still at her station. She could have evacuated, should have evacuated, but she stayed, keeping the quantum drive running even as the ship died around her. Bora's console exploded. She was thrown back, hitting the wall hard. Blood ran down her face, but she crawled back to her station. Her hands found the controls, keeping the targeting solution locked on the command organism. "We're not going to make it," Hyojin said. She wasn't panicking, just stating a fact. The ship was falling apart too fast. "Yes, we are," Taiwan said. He said it with such certainty that Hyojin almost believed him. 15 seconds, the main power grid failed. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing the bridge in red. Half the consoles went dark. The ship stopped shaking, not because it was better, but because the engines were giving up. 10 seconds. A massive bioship moved directly in front of them. Its tentacles spread wide, ready to crush the Resolute completely. Taiwan could see inside it through gaps in its organic armor. It was alive. It was thinking. And it wanted them dead. 5 seconds. Time seemed to slow down. Taiwan looked at his crew. Hyojin, still flying the ship even though there was nothing left to fly. Bora, bleeding but focused, keeping the target locked. Jiwoo, somewhere below in the dying engine room, pushing the quantum drive past all limits. These were his people. This was his crew. And they were about to do the impossible. "Quantum drive at maximum," Jiwoo said. "Firing now." The universe went white. The quantum pulse exploded outward from the Resolute in all directions. It wasn't a normal weapon. It didn't destroy with heat or force. Instead, it twisted space and time itself. Every swarm ship within 10,000 kilometers was hit instantly. The swarm's quantum entanglement network, the thing that made them so dangerous, suddenly became their weakness. The pulse traveled through their connection, hitting all 10,000 ships at the same moment. They froze. Every single one of them stopped moving. For 3 seconds, the entire swarm was paralyzed. Their collective mind was trying to process what had happened, Trying to understand this new threat, trying to adapt, Taiwan opened a channel. He broadcast on every frequency the Coalition used. His voice, calm and clear, cut through the chaos of battle. All Coalition forces, this is Captain Taiwan of the ESS Resolute. Fire everything you have, fire now. You have 3 seconds. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. The Coalition fleet was scattered, damaged, barely holding together. They had been losing. They had been dying. And now this crazy human was telling them to attack? Veltak understood first. He saw the frozen swarm, he saw the opportunity. You heard the human. Veltak roared. All ships fire, fire! 3,000 ships unleashed hell. Every weapon, every missile, every ounce of firepower they had left. The space between the fleets turned into pure energy. Plasma, antimatter, graviton waves, everything at once. The swarm couldn't adapt. They couldn't move. They couldn't defend themselves. For those 3 seconds they were just targets. Bioships exploded by the hundreds, then by the thousands. The command organism, the massive brain coordinating everything, took a direct hit from a Varkesh antimatter barrage. It didn't just die. It was erased from existence. Without the command organism, the swarm's network collapsed. The remaining bioships stopped coordinating. They began attacking randomly, confused, acting like animals instead of a unified force. The Coalition fleet tore through them. On the Resolute, every system failed at once. The quantum drive burned out completely. Lights died. Gravity stopped working. Life support shut down. The ship went dark and silent, drifting among the wreckage of the destroyed swarm. Taiwan felt consciousness slipping away. The last thing he saw was the main screen, showing Coalition ships finishing off the last of the swarm. They had done it. One ship, one crazy plan, and it had worked. Then everything went black. In the engine room, Jiwoo collapsed next to the quantum drive. The core was melted, fused beyond any repair, but it had done its job. She smiled even as darkness took her. On the bridge, Hyejin's last thought was that they had flown well. The best flight of her life. Then she too fell unconscious. Bora's neural implants were burned out, smoking and dead. But the targeting data had held until the end. She had done her part. That was enough. The battle was over. The swarm was destroyed. Thousands of bioships floated dead in space. The Coalition fleet, battered and broken but alive, began the slow work of counting their losses and celebrating their victory. And in the center of it all, one small human ship drifted in silence. No power, no life signs that anyone could detect, just floating among the debris of an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. Veltak stared at the Resolute on his screen. The ship that everyone had mocked. The ship that proved one vessel could change everything. He had been so wrong about humanity, so wrong about what made a force powerful. Send rescue teams to the human ship, he ordered quietly, and tell them to hurry. The Coalition had won the battle, but they had lost so much. Over half their fleet was destroyed or damaged. Tens of thousands were dead. Nexus Station itself had taken hits and was barely functional, but they were alive. The galaxy was safe, and it was all because of one ship that nobody believed in. Rescue vessels approached the Resolute carefully. The ship was so damaged they were afraid it might break apart if they touched it. Pieces of hull floated around it. Atmosphere had vented from multiple breaches. It looked dead, but when the rescue teams boarded, they found life signs. Weak, barely there, but alive. The human crew had survived. Somehow, impossibly, they were still breathing, still alive, ready to be saved. The silence after battle was always the worst part. Veltak stood on the bridge of his flagship staring at the destruction. Dead ships everywhere. Some Coalition, most swarm. The space around Nexus Station looked like a graveyard. They had won. The swarm was destroyed, but the cost was terrible. More than 1,500 Coalition ships were gone. That meant hundreds of thousands dead, families destroyed, worlds that would mourn for years. And floating in the middle of it all was the Resolute. Dark, silent, broken. Get me a connection to the rescue teams, Veltak ordered. What's the status of the human ship? A young officer checked her console. Sir, the Resolute is barely holding together. Hull breaches on every deck. No power at all. The quantum drive is completely destroyed, but they're detecting weak life signs. How many survivors? The officer paused. Unknown, sir. The ship is too damaged to scan properly. Rescue teams are boarding now. Veltak felt something tight in his chest. Those humans had saved everyone. They flew into certain death and somehow made a miracle happen. If they died now, after everything they accomplished, it would be cruel. Tell the rescue teams to be careful, he said. That ship is a hero. Treat it with respect. Inside the Resolute, the rescue team moved slowly through dark corridors. They wore full environment suits because half the ship was open to vacuum. Their lights cut through the darkness, showing the destruction. Everything was broken. Walls melted from the swarm's weapons. Consoles exploded from power overloads. The floor was covered in debris. It was a miracle the ship hadn't just broken apart completely. The team leader, a medical officer named Ral from the peaceful Yendari species, checked his scanner. I'm reading life signs ahead. Multiple humans. They're alive but unconscious. They found the bridge first. The door was jammed, so they had to cut through. When they entered, they saw Taewan and Hyejin still at their stations. Taewan was slumped in his captain's chair. Hyejin had her hands still on the flight controls, even though she was unconscious. They stayed at their posts until the very end, one of the rescue team whispered. Even when they knew they were dying, they stayed. Ral checked them both. They're alive, barely. Get medical pods here immediately. And be gentle. These two just saved the galaxy. They found Bora next to a console that had exploded. Her face was burned, and her neural implants were completely fried. But she was breathing. The scanner she'd been using still showed the targeting data for the quantum pulse. She had kept it running until the last second. The team searched deeper into the ship. Every corridor was worse than the last. They found crew members who hadn't made it. Others who were injured but alive. Each one was carefully moved to medical pods and taken to the rescue ships. Then they reached the engine room. The door had been melted shut by the heat. They had to cut through 3 layers of reinforced metal. When they finally entered, the temperature was still hot enough to damage their suits. In the center of the room, the quantum drive sat like a dead heart. It was melted, fused, completely destroyed, and next to it they found Jiwoo. She was lying against the drive, her hands still touching it. Her uniform was burned. Her face was covered in sweat and ash. But she was alive. Against all probability, she was still alive. Ral knelt beside her, checking his scanner. She should be dead. The heat, the radiation, everything. But somehow she's alive. Get a medical pod down here now. As they carefully lifted Jiwoo away from the drive, Ral noticed something. Her hands were badly burned, but she had been gripping manual controls. She had stayed conscious long enough to prevent the quantum drive from exploding. If it had exploded, everyone on the ship would have died instantly. She saved her own crew, Ral said quietly. After saving the entire galaxy, she stayed awake long enough to save her friends. Over the next hours, the rescue teams found all 53 human crew members. 23 were dead, heroes who would never see home again. But 30 survived, including Taiwan, Hyejin, Bora, and Jiwoo. Back on the Coalition flagship, Veltok watched as the survivors were brought aboard. Medical teams rushed them to the best care available. The humans would need weeks, maybe months to recover, but they would live. Sir, one of his officers said, we've completed the initial analysis of the battle. The humans used technology we've never seen before. Their quantum drive created a pulse that disrupted the swarm's entire network. Without that 3-second window they created, we would have lost. Veltok nodded slowly. He understood now. Humanity hadn't sent one ship because they were weak or unprepared. They sent one ship because that was the perfect response. Too many ships would have diluted their strategy. Too few would have been nothing. One ship with the right technology and the right crew was exactly what the situation needed. Humans think differently than we do, Veltok said. We saw a threat and threw numbers at it. They saw a problem and created a solution. We believed in overwhelming force. They believed in precision and innovation. The officer nodded. Sir, there's something else. We've been reviewing humanity's contributions to the Coalition over the past 50 years. They've been sharing technology with us the entire time. Medical advances, energy systems, agricultural improvements. They gave us so much and we treated them like children. Veltok felt shame, deep painful shame. He had mocked Taewan in the War Council. He had called humans foolish and weak. He had questioned whether they even belonged in the Coalition. And all the time they were planning to save everyone. I need to see Captain Taewan, Veltok said. As soon as he's conscious, tell me immediately. It took 3 days. The medical teams worked around the clock using every treatment they knew. The human crew slowly recovered. Burns healed. Broken bones mended. But the doctors warned that some injuries would take longer. Bora's neural implants were destroyed completely. She would need new ones, a surgery that could take months. Jiwoo's hands were badly damaged from the radiation and heat. She would need extensive therapy to use them properly again. But they were alive. All of them. 30 humans who had flown into death and somehow come back. On the third day, Taewon woke up. He opened his eyes and saw white ceiling panels. Medical equipment beeped beside him. For a moment he was confused. Was he dead? Was this some kind of afterlife? Then he heard a familiar voice. "Welcome back, Captain." Taewon turned his head. Heejin was in the next bed, awake and smiling weakly. She looked terrible, covered in bandages and connected to monitors. But she was alive. Did it work? Taewon asked. His voice was rough, barely a whisper. "It worked," Heejin said. "The swarm is destroyed. We won." Taewon closed his eyes. Relief flooded through him. They had done it. The plan had worked. Humanity had proved itself. The crew? He asked. Heejin's smile faded a little. 23 dead. 30 survived. We're being treated by the best doctors in the coalition. 23. Taewon felt the weight of those deaths. Good people. Brave people. They had volunteered knowing the risks, but that didn't make it easier. Before he could say more, the door opened. Veltok entered, and the massive alien had to duck to fit through the doorway. He looked at Taewon and Heejin, then did something unexpected. He bowed. A deep formal bow of respect. "I came to apologize," Veltok said. His voice was rough with emotion. "I was wrong about humanity. I was wrong about you. You saved us all, and I treated you with nothing but contempt. I am ashamed." Taewon tried to sit up, but his body protested. He settled for looking at the alien commander. "You did what you thought was right," Taewon said. "We all did. The important thing is we won together." "Together," Veltok repeated. "Yes. That is what the coalition should be. Different species, different methods, but working together. You taught us that. One ship was enough because it was the right ship. The right crew. The right plan." He straightened up. "The Coalition Council has decided to honor you and your crew. There will be a ceremony when you have recovered. And there is something else." "What?" Taewon asked. "We want to learn from you. Every species in the Coalition wants to understand your approach to warfare, your technology, your way of thinking."
"You've changed how we see combat."
"How we see strategy. You've changed everything." Taewon looked at Hyojin. She shrugged slightly, which made her wince from her injuries. "We'll help however we can," Taewon said. "That's what the Coalition is for. Sharing knowledge. Working together." Veltok bowed again, then left the medical bay. When he was gone, Heejin laughed softly. "I think we finally got their attention," she said. "Yeah," Taewon agreed. "I think we did." 3 months passed. The wounds healed slowly, both physical and emotional. Nexus Station was rebuilt, stronger than before. The Coalition fleet recovered, learning from their losses. And the human crew of the Resolute continued their long recovery. Today was special. Today was the ceremony. Taewon stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his dress uniform. His body still ached sometimes, but the doctors said he was healing well. Better than expected, actually. Humans were tough, they said. More resilient than they looked. A knock on the door. Heejin entered, also in dress uniform. She walked with only a slight limp now. In a few more months, even that would be gone. "Ready?" she asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Taewon replied. "How are the others?" Jiwoo is nervous. Her hands are mostly healed, but she's worried about the ceremony. Bora got her new neural implants yesterday. She says everything looks too bright now, but she'll adjust. The rest of the crew is excited. Some are still in wheelchairs, but everyone wanted to be here. "Good," Taewon said. "They deserve this. All of them." They walked together through the corridors of Nexus Station. The station looked different now. Cleaner, newer, but also changed in other ways. Human technology had been integrated into the repairs. Quantum reactors providing more efficient power, advanced medical facilities, new defensive systems. And everywhere humans worked alongside aliens, not as junior partners or newcomers, as equals. The ceremony hall was massive. Representatives from all 17 coalition species had come. Thousands filled the space. When Taewon and his crew entered, everyone stood. The applause was deafening. Taewon felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He was a soldier, not a celebrity. But he walked forward with his crew, keeping his head high. They deserved this recognition. Veltak stood at the center of the stage. He looked different, too. More humble, more thoughtful. The battle had changed him, just as it had changed everyone. 3 months ago, Veltak began, speaking to the gathered crowd. We faced extinction. The Kraltak swarm had destroyed 17 worlds. They had defeated every force sent against them. They seemed unstoppable. We prepared for battle with the largest fleet ever assembled, and still we believed we might lose. He paused, looking at the human crew. Then humanity arrived. With one ship, one crew, and a plan that none of us understood. Many of us, myself included, mocked them. We questioned their commitment. We doubted their capability. We were fools. The crowd was silent, listening. Humanity taught us that strength is not measured in numbers alone. They showed us that innovation, strategy, and courage can overcome any advantage. They proved that sometimes one ship with the right plan is worth more than 1,000 ships with the wrong one. Veltak gestured to the humans. Captain Taewon, Commander Haijin, Engineer Jiwoo, Dr. Bora, and the entire crew of the ESS Resolute, please step forward. They walked to the center of the stage. Taewon noticed that Jiwoo was shaking slightly. He gave her an encouraging nod. The Coalition Council has decided to award you the Medal of Unity, Veltak said. This honor has been given only twice before in our 1,000-year history. It recognizes those who have saved the Coalition itself from destruction. He held up a small crystal that seemed to glow with inner light. Each crew member received one, placed carefully around their necks. The medals were beautiful, but Taewon knew they carried weight beyond their appearance. They were a symbol of respect from every species in the galaxy. But there is more, Veltak continued. We also honor the 23 crew members who did not survive. Their names will be inscribed in the Hall of Heroes. Their sacrifice will be remembered forever. A hologram appeared showing the names of the fallen. Taewon felt tears in his eyes. Good people, brave souls. They had given everything. The crowd applauded again. But this time it was different, quieter, more respectful. This was applause for heroes who would never hear it. Veltak stepped back and Taewon realized he was expected to speak. He hadn't prepared anything. But looking out at all those faces, all those different species united in respect, he knew what to say. Thank you, Taewon began. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall. 3 months ago, humanity sent one ship to help defend the Coalition. People asked why we sent so few. The truth is, we sent exactly what we needed to send. He looked at his crew, then back at the crowd. We didn't send a large fleet because we understood something. The swarm adapted to conventional warfare. More ships would have meant more targets, more data for them to learn from. We needed something different, something they couldn't predict or adapt to quickly enough. But here's what's important. Our plan only worked because the Coalition fleet held the line. You fought. You sacrificed. You gave us the time we needed. This victory belongs to all of us, not just humanity. Applause again. Taewon waited for it to quiet. The Coalition is special because we're different. 17 species, each with unique strengths. The Varkesh bring military tradition and honor. The Telmar bring technology and precision. The Yandari bring compassion and healing. Every species contributes something vital. Humanity's contribution is innovation. We're young compared to most of you. We don't have thousands of years of history, but we have fresh perspectives. We solve problems differently. And when we combine that with your knowledge and experience, we become stronger than any of us alone. He paused, gathering his thoughts. That's what the Resolute proved. Not that humanity is superior, but that working together, respecting each other's differences, we can overcome anything. One ship was enough because it represented the best of what the Coalition can be. The crowd erupted in applause. Not just polite ceremony applause, but genuine appreciation. Taewon saw aliens from different species embracing, celebrating together. The battle had changed something fundamental in the Coalition. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Taewon found himself surrounded by representatives wanting to talk, to learn, to understand. He answered questions patiently, explained the quantum technology, discussed strategy and tactics. At one point, he stepped away to get some air. He found a quiet observation deck and stood looking out at space. The wreckage from the battle was mostly cleared now. New ships were being built. The coalition was recovering. Yi-Jin joined him at the window. Quite a change from 3 months ago, she said. Yeah, Taewon agreed. Back then they treated us like children. Now they treat us like partners. You know what the best part is? Yi-Jin asked. Humanity is building 5 new ships. Not to replace the Resolute, to expand on what it started. And each one will have mixed crews. Humans working alongside other species. What are they naming them? Taewon asked. Courage, wisdom, unity, hope, and perseverance. Bora suggested the names. Taewon smiled. Perfect names. They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships move through space. Training exercises. The coalition was preparing, always preparing. But now they prepared differently. Smaller task forces, specialized teams, innovation alongside tradition. Do you think the Resolute is really beyond repair? Hyjin asked quietly. The quantum drive is destroyed, Taewon said, and the damage is too extensive. But they're preserving her, turning her into a monument here at Nexus Station. Future generations will see her and remember what one ship accomplished. Good. She deserves that. A message came through on Taewon's communicator. He checked it and frowned. What is it? Agent asked. Long-range sensors. They've detected something in the unexplored regions beyond Coalition space. Movement, energy signatures. Something big, another threat? Maybe, or maybe something else. They're not sure yet. Ye-Jin looked worried for a moment. Then she smiled. Well, whatever it is, at least the Coalition knows how to work together now. We're stronger than we were. Taewon nodded. That was true. The battle against the Swarm had changed everything. Not just tactics and technology, but understanding, respect, unity. Through the window, he could see the construction yards where new ships were being built. Human designs mixed with alien engineering. The best of all species working together. In the distance, he could just make out the Resolute. She was being moved to her permanent location, where she would stand as a memorial. One ship that had changed the galaxy. We didn't send only one ship because we had to, Taewon said quietly. We sent one ship because we believed in it. And that belief shared now across the Coalition is what truly changed everything. Yi-Jin put a hand on his shoulder. Come on, Captain. The reception is still going. People want to talk to us about the new ship designs. Your input is needed. They walked back together, leaving the observation deck. Behind them, space stretched endlessly. Somewhere out there, something was coming. A new threat, perhaps. Or maybe a new ally. The future was uncertain. But the Coalition was ready. United. Stronger. Changed forever by one ship and 53 humans who refused to give up. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of hope. And as long as different species could work together, respect each other and learn from one another, no threat was truly unstoppable. Taewon looked back one last time at the Resolute. She floated silently in space, a monument to courage and innovation, a reminder that sometimes one is enough, and sometimes one is exactly what the galaxy needs.